Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Today, the Polish government adopted a bill on the so-called small pension. As a result of this new regulation, over 300 small businesses will be able to make reduced contributions, on average 500 zloty per month lower, to the social security system. At present, lower contributions are made by about 180,000 small business owners.
This is a solution which will enable small businesses to flourish. I am talking about micro and mid-sized small businesses. We estimate that the amount to pay to the social pension will be lowered by 500 Polish zlotys on the average. For businesses with income higher than 5,000 zloty, this discount will be smaller, and for those with small earnings, the amount would be much higher than 500 zloty. So the average is the average. On the scale of the whole budget of Poland, it is a shift of at least 1,300 million to small and very small businesses. Why am I presenting this in such a way? This is because the pension plan system will have a deficit, and this deficit must be compensated. It is going to be compensated by the transfer of funds from the state treasury. So in order to help small and very small businesses, and frankly micro businesses, we will move 1,300 million, maybe even 500 million zloty.
Let's imagine a business owner whose gross income was about 84,000, the net income was about 36,000. Presently, the social pension contribution will be about 990 zloty, and starting in 2020, the respective amount of the contribution will be 570 zloty. So it is that average 500 zloty less than until now. It is a very beneficial solution, cash in the small business owner's pocket.
Donald Tusk, who steps down as President of the European Council on the 1st of December, has been chosen as the head of the European People's Party, a grouping in the European Parliament which includes Christian Democratic and centre parties from across Europe. Tusk doesn't shy away from the fact that in his new role he will be engaging more closely in Polish politics.
Can we give away the sphere of security and order to political populists, manipulators and autocrats?
When asked if he is definitely now bidding farewell to Polish politics, Tusk responded by saying it's exactly the opposite. It's a new beginning, also with Polish politics. Politicians from the Civic Platform Party are not hiding their excitement. I'm glad he's not leaving politics and that he will continue to do the good work for Poles and the country. As head of the European People's Party, he will be dealing with some of the most important leaders of the EU. Tusk stated yesterday that as the leader of the party, he will be fighting to preserve the rule of law and against populists in Europe. Politicians of the ruling Law and Justice Party take these words as the preview of an anti-government policy from the former leader of the Civic Platform. It's definitely his personal success, which has its roots in his European career. This gives him more freedom to criticize the Polish government, as it's not as appropriate for high-ranking EU officials. Nevertheless, he did that during his term of office, and it will be difficult for him to go back to Polish politics. Donald Tusk will step down from his position as the President of the European Council on December 1st, and on the same day his 3 years of office as the leader of the European People's Party will begin.
The hearings before the United States Congress Intelligence Committee regarding the impeachment procedure against United States President Donald Trump, initiated by the Democratic Party, are continuing. Yesterday, the United States Ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, testified in front of the committee. However, as before, his testimony did not provide the Democrats with clear evidence that President Trump had abused his power in relation to his dealings with Ukraine.
In the investigation of the Ukrainian scandal, the President of the United States is accused of putting pressure on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to launch an investigation in his country against Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, his likely Democratic Party rival in next year's presidential election. The Democrats want to prove that the president made the implementation of the investigation a condition of granting hundreds of millions of dollars worth of military assistance to Ukraine, which had been previously approved by the American Congress.
For over a year, I resisted this whole idea of going down the road to impeachment. But it was made necessary, and not by the whistleblower, but by the actions of the president.
As every day goes by, Adam Schiff and the Democrats' wishful thinking for impeachment crumbles.
One of those who were questioned was Laura Cooper, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, who testified about the suspension of almost $400 million in aid for the security of the government in Kyiv, as part of the pressure put on President Zelensky.
In July, I became aware of a hold being placed on obligation of the State Department's Foreign Military Financing, or FMF, and DoD's USAI funds. In a series of interagency meetings, I heard that the President had directed the Office of Management and Budget to hold the funds because of his concerns about corruption in Ukraine. Let me say at the outset that I have never discussed this or any other matter with the President and never heard directly from him about this matter.
The next to be questioned was Gordon Sondland, a millionaire and donor to the Donald Trump campaign and U.S. ambassador to the European Union. Sondland said he received requests from Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, to make an agreement with Kyiv. He added, however, that he had never spoken to Donald Trump in person.
Who would benefit from an investigation of the Bidens?
I assume President Trump would benefit.
There we have it, see?
Mr. Maloney?
Hold on, sir.
Excuse me. I've been very forthright, and I really resent what you're trying to do.
Fair enough. You've been very forthright. This is your third try to do so, sir.
My testimony is I never heard from President Trump that aid was conditioned on an announcement of elections.
Sondland also described the issue of email exchanges between the U.S. and Kyiv authorities, which were known of by the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence.
You've testified that the White House meeting that President Zelensky desperately wanted, and that was very important to President Zelensky, was it not?
Absolutely.
President Trump continues to refute the Democrat allegations, suggesting that the matter is expected to influence the results of the 2020 election.
Everybody knows who the whistleblower is, and the whistleblower is a political operative. These gentlemen know it. He's a political operative. And frankly, the IG should have never brought this.
Look, I would not direct my Justice Department like this president does. I'd let them make their independent judgment. I would not dictate who should be prosecuted or who should be exonerated. That's not the role of the President of the United States. It's the Attorney General of the United States, not the President's attorney, private attorney.
We have a president who is not only a pathological liar, he is likely the most corrupt president in the modern history of America. But we cannot simply be consumed by Donald Trump.
The basic of the impeachment procedure implemented by the Democrats against the president is the accusation that he abused power and compromised national security in his relations with Ukraine.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel is planning to visit Auschwitz, the former Nazi death camp, for the first time in her 14 years in office. The Munich daily newspaper, Süddeutsche Zeitung, reported on Thursday that Merkel has accepted an invitation to attend the 10th anniversary of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Foundation, to be held on 6 December. Merkel's office confirmed that a visit is planned, but declined to specify the precise date, as her appointments are generally only announced a week in advance. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Have a look at the map for tonight. In the whole country, sky will be an overcast. Rainfall is expected in Szczecin. The temperatures will range from 3 degrees in Kraków to 6 in Lublin. Wind will be weak. Let's see the forecast for tomorrow. In most regions, loads of sun will appear. Light overcasts are expected around northwestern Poland. Temperatures will range from 9 degrees in Zielona Góra, Szczecin and Koszalin to 14 in Rzeszów. Gusty wind is expected especially on the north. Let's check the weather for the next days. On Saturday, the temperature will be quite high on the west, but on the east fall to even 1 degree. Rain will appear on the northwest. On Sunday, loads of sun we will see across Poland. Pressure will rise. The highest temperature we will notice on the south, 12 degrees. The coldest place will be Białystok with 3. On Monday, temperature will rise to 14 degrees on the southeast. Plenty of sunlight we will see in central and on the northeast. Thank you for watching and see you soon.
Poland Daily Business Edition, and we will talk tonight about drone market, the growing exponentially segment of the market, which involves manufacturing of the drones, operating of the drones, and also regulating. The Polish regulator, Małgorzata Dąbrowska from Ministry of Infrastructure, is in our studio. Ma'am, welcome to the show. And please tell us, why do we need to regulate the drone market from the first
from
thing?
the scratch? Yes. Why? Because we need to regulate. Actually, I will start with that. We do have regulations for drones because Poland introduced the first BVLOS regulation early this year in January. So this is our local regulation, but a set of European Union regulation, will enter into force in July next year. So it means that we have the regulatory framework for drones. And why we do need? Because drones used for the commercial purposes is something new in our environment. It's something that which need to be regulated to make the new area safe and accepted by the society and safe for commercial operation. I cannot imagine that any president of the big company will use drones extensively without having the proof that it's safe.
Right, the safety is like paramount importance here, but let us start from the scratch. We have this drones that started as a military equipment, then it was used as toys. We have hundreds of thousands of different drones used as a toys, and then we are building services over that. And until recently, the Polish law permitted the usage of the drones only within the radius of visibility of the operator.
Starting from January this week, actually drones flying out of BVLOS, it means beyond the side of life of operator, was admitted before January 2019. But it was very difficult to organize the BVLOS flight with the use of drones because it was very similar to the regular aviation. Starting from January, let's say February this year, it's quite very easy. It's easier to fly BVLOS. So Poland is one of the first countries in the world which accepted, which approved.
Do we
BVLOS.
already have a market and services that are based on that out-of-sight flight?
We do have very small market, but it's growing fastly. So fast, and we see that starting from entering to the force the regulation, the market is growing. The growth is, according to our estimates, is 48% per year. So it's a big growth, and we expect that the growth that we can see this year will be much more extensive next year, and very big in 2021. Because I would just explain. Now the companies, the drone companies, and the users just are learning how to use drones for BVLOS. They are introducing the operation. Next year will be the, let's say, using the drones which are bought this year for BVLOS, but I assume that next year the Polish special forces, no military, but for example the Polish police, the fire guys will plan spendings for 2021 because next year the certification process will be approved. So it means that we can expect big, significant purchases not next year, but in 2021.
In the area of professional drones that are like couple of times more expensive than those.
Yes, and certified, which is very important.
Certified. What is the way of certification of the drone?
We have two, let's say, regimes for certification. One regime is imposed by the European Union. Let's say we are using the European for the civil aviation. We have three categories of drones: open category, specific, and certified. The middle specific category means that we can use, for example, the open category drone, but this specific drone needs to be approved and verified by the Civil Aviation Authority. But in the third category, the certified, it will be certified similarly to the traditional aviation. So this is the civil aviation regime, but the regime for the state aviation, drone state aviation, will be determined, I hope, next year.
So everything is going on. The market is growing 48% last year and even more this year. And if you speak about 2020, the growth will be very significant. Małgorzata Darowska of Ministry of Infrastructure is trying to regulate and lead the innovation in that market. Thank you very much for visiting our studio. And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's see the forecast for tomorrow. In most regions, loads of sun will appear. Light overcasts are expected around northwestern Poland. Temperatures will range from 9 degrees in Zielona Góra, Szczecin and Koszalin to 14 in Rzeszów. Gusty wind is expected especially on the north. Let's take a look at the forecast for our continent. In the Balkans, temperature will range from 12 degrees in Bucharest to 22 in Athens. On the South Europe, temperature will little drop to 15 degrees in Lisbon and 10 in Madrid. In British Islands, we are expecting little rainfalls, but sunlight will appear as well. There, the temperature will hover between 7 and 9 degrees. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Hello everyone, my name is Maria Kądzielska and this is Poland Daily Culture. He tirelessly promotes the topic of righteous among the nation who saved Jews during the World War II. Johnny Daniels once again organized an event for the righteous and he's going to tell us all the details. Johnny, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me here.
But before we start the interview, let's see how it all went. Johnny, you organized many events before for the righteous. What differs this one from the previous ones?
Firstly, the reason that we do such events is a way of saying thank you. You know, these remarkable people risked not just their lives, but the lives of their family, and often the lives of their whole villages or towns, to save the life of somebody else, to do something truly remarkable. And for us, all these years later, to be able to stand up and give a level of thanks and credit to these people is something that I'm very proud to be able to do. This event is one of many that we've held and we will hold in the future whilst we can and whilst they're still with us, to give thanks and honor. And this event was slightly different. We were honored to have with us righteous from many different countries. We had righteous from Poland and from Belarus. We had descendants of righteous from Albania, remarkable stories. And really, just the gratitude that we're able to show these people is what makes this all worthwhile.
Absolutely. Before we focused more for the righteous in Poland, which is also difficult to find them. But this time you went all around East Europe to look for them. So where they were from, actually?
So the righteous who joined us this evening were, as we mentioned, from Poland, from all around Poland, but also from Belarus and from different countries as well. And again, it's not always easy to find the righteous. Many of these people kept their stories quiet and didn't always tell of what they did. People didn't do this for honor or for credit or for a tree or whatever it may have been. People did this because they believed that it was the right thing to do, either motivated by religion or by simple belief in humanity. And so a lot of these people, again, were never honored or never thanked publicly. And this is also an important point of what we've done as well. This evening, we were honored that we were able to honor 3 people and give thanks to 3 people who never received thanks before publicly. The families of the people that they saved were in touch with them and were in contact, but at no point did anybody reach out for many different reasons to say thank you. And I think this is also an important part of what we do. You know, we're a small foundation. We're not big, we're not an institution. We're unable to give people awards and medals and titles. But what we can do, and what we do, and what we will continue to do, is simply to say thank you.
And you also, to honor this, for this event, you invited guests from abroad, including, for example, Yehiel Bar, but also Edward Masberg. Who else came?
So we were incredibly honored that the former Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, Chilik Bar, Yehiel Bar, joined us this evening. Himself, a person whose family were unfortunately murdered in the Holocaust by the German Nazis. So for him to come out to our event and give honor and thanks, we're incredibly grateful for. Also, again, Holocaust survivor Edward Masberg, a true hero. The fact that Edward made the journey from the United States to be here this evening, to give thanks and honor, and to credit, and to speak so beautifully as he did, is something that is really remarkably important. We're also honored that the honorary president of the From the Depths Foundation, Avram Grant, the former manager of Chelsea Soccer Club and the Israel national team, came out here as well, especially just for this event. Also, we're grateful for the media that came here from Israel and from other countries to tell this story. Famous music, pop stars from Kosovo, as you saw, sang so eloquently. And this is something that we're very grateful for, that all of these people took time from their schedules with nothing but love in their hearts to give honor and credit.
And tell us how such events, also your event, are received in Israel, because we know that the public in Poland treats this topic differently than usually the public in Israel.
Well, people receive these incredibly all around the world. I can tell you that the views that we have on this on live streams, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, are remarkable. People really watch these events. People are interested, people want to give credit and thanks, people want to give honor. And I think that this is something that really is so well received and so well accepted, and we're so grateful that we're able to do this.
And if you are interested in the story of righteous among the nation, go on From the Depths website and see what they found out and what they are organizing. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.
With its roots in the uprising of November 1830 and encouraged by events elsewhere in Europe, including the success of the Italian independence movement, and taking advantage of a Russia weakened by the Crimean War and the reforms introduced by Tsar Alexander II, the uprising of January 1863 was the longest lasting in post-partition Poland. Although it was ultimately unsuccessful and Russian reprisals were swift and ruthless, its engagement of all levels of society went on to have a decisive influence on the subsequent development of Polish society. This is the story of that uprising.
democratic Russia. I mean, it's hard to imagine, but it is interesting.
But because then if we're talking about land reform, because at this time, I think in a similar time, in the immediate aftermath of the Crimean War, then Zamoyski with his National Agricultural Society.
Zamoyski was very nice. I mean, remember Czartoryski we talked about last time? Indeed. I mean, that was his nephew. Right. So you are still within the same circle. Andrzej Zamoyski was recommending new types of agriculture in Poland. I mean, he would lead a very, very modern folwark, as the Polish language puts it, in Klemensówka. So sometimes his followers are called Klemensowczycy because of that Klemensówka. That was it. But and at the beginning, because now we have to, I think we have to move a bit onwards and talk about the uprising itself. Generally, in the January uprising, on the Polish side, we've got three political powers: the Reds, the Whites, and Wielopolski. And now I'll talk about it in greater detail.
And just so we're clear, I mean, in the sort of Russian part of what we'll call the Russian part of Poland, or the Polish lands that were down outside the Congress. I mean, what did society actually look like in that time? I mean, what percentage were nobles or people of that ilk? What percentage were sort of peasantry?
I'd say, I mean, there is this strip of land leading to Vilnius, going across Lida, Vilnius, and reaching Dyneburg in German, in Polish, but in Russian it's Dźwińsk, and you've got Polish villages. I mean, there is a Polish majority there. So Polish-speaking people are majoritary in that. Percentage-wise, the situation is worse in Ukraine.
Right.
Because you've got a very, very slim stratum of Polish noblemen and a mass of Ukrainian-speaking or Ruthenian, that's the word, Ruthenian-speaking peasants. And you can see that when you look at the map of the Rising and you see the battles. You know, if you draw a map and put dots showing every battle in the Rising, I mean, it's not surprising that the most of it occurred in Poland. Nowadays, Poland. On the other hand, you've got this strip of land I mentioned going to Vilnius and further on, because there is this huge percent of Polish people. There is no surprise that you've got a very huge support for the Rising in Żmudź, Samogitia in Lithuania, a part of Lithuania, where you've got, I mean, these people are Lithuanian speaking, but they are Catholics. And they were very severely persecuted by the Russian government, and they supported widely the January uprising.
Right, and in terms
in
of
Ukraine, you've got just some.
And what
dots.
about major cities? I mean, was the position different in the towns? Was there a sort of middle class, a bourgeoisie developing, which might have a different view of the revolution?
That's the first uprising in which you've got a strong support of the bourgeoisie. That you've got. Now, for example, I'll give an example. There is this famous demonstration in Warsaw in 1861, so before the Rising.
That's right, yes.
The Rising is preceded by huge patriotic demonstrations. And you've got one in Warsaw on the 27th of February 1861 that became too crowded, and the Russians ordered to shoot at these people. And 5 people got killed in that demonstration. Among them, you had 2 noblemen, 1 worker, 1 student, and 1 craftsman. And so symbolically, Symbolically, I mean, you didn't have a peasant, but symbolically, I mean, it's almost...
The Russians are might to upset every grouping.
Yes. So symbolically, that was the whole society.
I seem to remember, was one of those who's killed Jewish?
Yeah.
So that actually because the Zamoyski's movement with the agricultural society had also it also attracted a certain amount of Jewish support as well.
No, not. I mean, I would say that that wasn't Zamoyski. There was another interesting figure. I mean, I wanted to skip that figure, but okay. I mean, you've brought it up, so you ruined my plan. I mean,
I'm sorry.
It's perfectly okay. I mean, there is a huge. In fact, the Jewish community supported the uprising more than the peasants. I mean, it's blasphemy for almost a blasphemy for Polish memory, but that was the case.
And particularly in Warsaw, I think there was a strong
Leopold
population.
Kronenberg.
That's right. Yes.
Who is famous for setting up a very important bank, that is to say, bank handlowy, so trade. Commerce Bank,
which actually exists to this day.
To this day, I mean, it merged with Citibank,
but it
still exists. Yeah,
a living history.
A living history. So, I mean, the Jews, in general, were rather, careful. I mean, trying to see what happens. But when things came to pass and the uprising broke out, I mean, they joined the ranks, and supported the movement. So I can say that this is a very, very powerful and nice tradition that we have this Polish-Jewish alliance within January uprising during the Second World War. Of course, the situation of Jews during the Second World War was much worse, but Poles were trying to help the Jewish rebels, insurgents in the Jewish uprising.
Yes, and it's quite just as an aside, in an earlier program.
And vice versa.
Yeah, but in an earlier program, we visited the Jewish cemetery, and we saw I saw that. And we saw the grave of that young chap.
The Holy Cross Mountains of Świętokrzyska province. Something to conjure with. These prehistoric outcroppings date back 500 million years and were once of Himalayan height. Today, the highest point within these hills, and indeed the highest point between southern Poland, the Tatra Mountains, etc., and the Urals, is still the Holy Cross Mountains, and specifically Bald Mountain or Święte Góry. Święte Góra is and was a sacred spot. Today the hill's summit is crowned with a basilica, which has stood for many centuries. But this is something to think about. A pagan wall, the remnants of a pagan wall, exists, crumbled and forgotten, like something out of a Shelley poem, symbolizing the peoples who once lived and worshipped here in pre-Christian times. There is something about this area. The oldest oak is here, the Bartek oak, 800 years old. This majestic tree is a stone's throw, or a few kilometers drive, if you will, from Heceni Castle. This strong point commanded traffic in the Kielce area for centuries. The bear went over the mountain to see what he could see, and we're going to do the same thing. Join us in the Holy Cross Mountains. I'm Will Richardson, and this is Poland Daily Travel, the show we do for you.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Poland Daily and another edition, this one beginning in Wysogóra. You can see the gate, through the gate behind me, the Abbey of Wysogóra, and before me, the valley of the Holy Cross Mountains. Wysogóra, of course, one of the highest points in Central Europe once you leave the Carpathian Mountains, the Tatra Mountains, and this area. And as you go toward Russia, toward the Ural Mountains, there's nothing higher. At 600 meters, it's much more awesome than you would think at first glance, just by looking, comparing that height to other mountains. There's something very special about this. These are old mountains, and you have a feeling that they're old mountains. And Holy Cross Mountains, why? I said in earlier programs that I'd tell you why it's called the Holy Cross Mountains. And I'm going to tell you why now, and I'll leave it to you. But as the story goes, there was a small piece of the cross on which Jesus was crucified. And that piece of the cross, brought from the Middle East, found its way to Poland and was in the church here, and that is the reason they're called the Holy Cross Mountains, because this area, which was already a sacred area, you see, was deemed to be the right place to keep that well, miraculous piece of history. Now, I said previously as well, that the pagans were here. And indeed they were, and they built a wall on this very hill you see behind me. And then, of course, Christianity came to this part of the world and took over the mountain in a different name. But there are many stories of supernatural events here, of ghosts, of witches having Sabbaths, and of all kinds of pagan goings on. And worse things than that have happened here. Of course, the wars have passed through here, and at one time, the abbey was virtually destroyed. Of course, now we can see its beauty has been restored, and it really is a special place. Very quiet here. Not a lot of tourists. Very quiet. Perfect place for a picnic, as we can see. A lot of groups come here for pilgrimages and the like. And some people just come to go for a walk, like these people here. And they just showed up like us to enjoy the beauty of this scene. Now look behind me, and you will see Polish autumn, as promised, in its complete splendor and glory. It doesn't get better than this. I mean, it would be hard to pick a better shot to show you what autumn looks like in Poland, in a very special place. And that place is Wysogóra, 600 meters tall, the Holy Cross Mountains. Stay with us, Poland Daily. We'll be showing you more from the Świętokrzyska Mountains, the Holy Cross Mountains, in the south central part of Poland.